Today, fighter Rustin Hughes joins us following a fairly recent win in a professional MMA bout. Rustin talks about adapting to life as a widow and amputee, and Rustin shares the story of building his nonprofit and talks about the world owing us nothing, so you gotta be bold and fight. Rustin Hughes is a really good interview, so tune in.
Through that tragedy taught me life is finite. You really have a short window to take what it is from life that you want and enjoy it.
You can go back to that day, February 18, 1990, and change what happened. My honest answer is I wouldn't change it.
You're just going to have to go through it, and your strength is going to be found in simply going through it and being authentic and real in the process.
I was talking with my palliative care doctor today, and she turned around to me and she looked at me and she was like, "Do you think that you'll eventually beat this?" And I was sort of like, yeah, that's probably what I'm trying to do.
No, nothing will ever take away the pain of my daughter not being here. It's my reality.
Well, I know what my body's going to do to me. I've got a wheelchair in my future. You know what I've been looking for?
What's that?
One with off-road wheels.
Just remembering me as I am, happy and energetic and full of life, no matter what.
You can expect life to kick you in the teeth, but you always get back up, no matter what, and you just keep going.
Living Adaptive with Scott Davidson.
Yo, what's up, everyone? Welcome back. Real quick, just a quick reminder. When you get a chance, head over to livingadaptive.com. Check out the content such as previous episodes, show notes, writings, context for guests, and a bunch of other good stuff. So let's get to this. Today we have a really great story about adapting, and when our guests began to adapt, an incredible nonprofit rose out of the adversity, and today's guest happens to be the Rustin Hughes. Rustin Hughes is the founder of the nonprofit organization Be Bold, and this organization focuses on adaptive sports and also giving back to those with various needs. Rustin also happens to be an amputee, and he is a professional fighter, and he's fighting in the non-adaptive divisions at a very high level. What's up, Rustin Hughes? Thanks for coming on, man.
Hey, how's it going? Thank you for having me.
Nice. I really appreciate you being here, man. Rustin, you've been fighting. You just fought and won. Do you get nervous before you get out there and fight?
Actually, this last time I didn't. It was just very calm, very calm. Like I already knew in my head I was going to win. I just felt that I was just kind of unstoppable at that point. I just felt very confident.
How long have you been fighting, man?
I've been training. I started training back in 07, 06, late 06.
Well, your background, you're a military guy. You were in the military from 93 to 97, I believe, something around there. So you're kind of prone for the fight. You know what I mean? And was that always your life? Were you always kind of a fighter?
Sort of. We wrestled kind of growing up. And wrestlers were a little bit rowdy.
Yeah, for sure.
And then, just going into the Army, you had to hold your own every now and again. And getting out, I didn't really, it wasn't something that, like UFC had just kind of started at that point. We really weren't into MMA when I got out of the military.
After you got into MMA, you actually have a story of adapting, man. And you went through some pretty significant trials, some pretty significant challenges, and you went through some blood clots and so forth. Can you tell us a little bit about your story?
Yeah. Actually, I think the most disabling thing that kind of happened to me was I was married to my wife, Brandy, and she had brain cancer. And she fought that for a long time. She fought that. It was over 10 years that she had battled that. Mm-hmm. And after she had passed away, it was in 2012. That really it knocked me to my foundation. It was nice though I was able to kind of use MMA to vent things out. There was a lot of just like, I can't believe this. She was 36 years old. And that's just she was young.
How old were you at the time?
I was 37.
37. And I do know this story. I do know that your wife went through 10 years of, fighting. living life with cancer, and you also were caregiver, if you will. And how was it? How did you get through such a dramatic event?
Honestly, I think a lot of it was my gym. I think just having that separation of being the caretaker and then also being able to kind of take care of myself. And when we were living in Colorado, when I first started doing the MMA, and then her health kind of was getting a little worse, so we moved back to Nebraska, where we both were originally from, and we moved to the town where her mom was at. And I got into, they had an MMA gym there. Being in Nebraska is definitely a lot different than Colorado. They didn't have there was no jujitsu gyms there, like this was just an MMA gym. And it was like what people were just YouTubing, or I was a 3-stripe white belt from a Gracie jiu-jitsu school in Colorado, and all of a sudden I was the assistant coach. But I needed that at that time. I eventually took over the head coaching position, and we had a young group of guys that I took underneath my wing, and we had a really strong MMA team. Like they were like my little brothers in a sense, like it was good energy. But yeah, after she had passed, I moved out with my coach now, Ryan Schultz. He took me in, him and his family took me in, and just so I could kind of get my mind right. I pursued a passion of mine, which was the culinary arts. And I went to the Escoffier School in Boulder. And then I went to Key West and did an internship there. And then I came back and graduated. I was going to be a personal chef. I had the business already started. We had a graduation. And then me and my girlfriend went up to Red Rocks for a concert the following weekend, and had a really hard time walking up to where our seats were at. I thought what it was is that, just rolling and MMA, you get these tweaks, and I thought I had a sciatic nerve out or something, just something different like that. It was hard getting up to our seats. It was even harder going back to our car after the concert. The next day we were at a farmer's market, and I got stuck in the middle of this farmer's market, and my girlfriend was just like, you know what, I've got to take you to the emergency room. And we went to the Denver VA. They took me back, started an ultrasound, and the girl that was doing the ultrasound, she was just like, she's like, you've got one of the a big blood clot in your artery. And I didn't really understand what that meant. The doctor comes in, and he finishes kind of filling me in on what is going on. And right as he's finishing, he's like, we're gonna take you to ICU. You probably will lose your leg at some point in your life, and you'll be on blood thinners. And it was just very surreal. Like I was in a dream. I was in ICU for 4 days. They tried to break through the clot. They couldn't get it. They were just like, there's nothing that we can do. Here's a bottle of blood thinners, and here's a bottle of oxycodone. And basically I went back to Nebraska and stayed with my parents, because I had about a month to for the next doctor's appointment. And I just had one question when this doctor's appointment had come up. It was like, at some point in my life, am I going to lose my leg? Because like things weren't looking good. And they were just like, yes, you're most likely going to lose your leg at some point in your life. And I was just like, well, we might as well just do this now, because I don't know where I'm going to be at in 5 years. Being on oxycodone and the pain that I was in, it was just miserable. And so we had decided to do a below the knee amputation, and that would have been August 21st, 2014. A couple of weeks go by after the first amputation, and I was still in just a lot of pain. And the doctor had come in, and he was checking out the incision, and he noticed that there was just one kind of area that didn't look good. And he took one of those Q-tips and almost buried that Q-tip into that incision. And
jeez.
Yeah, oh my God, it hurt so bad. And,
damn.
He looked at me and he was just like, we got to get you back into, surgery. September 11th, 2014. What was told to me is that they were going to just go in and kind of clean it out. And worst case scenario, they might have to take it above the knee. And I wasn't thinking we were going worst case scenario on this one. And, so we go, they asked me too, like, they're like, if we have to take it above the knee, do you want us to wake you up? And just let you know and make the decision, I guess, if you want to do this or not. And I was just like, no, don't wake me up. Like,
jeez,
that's the last thing. Like, you're going to wake me up to knock me out again? Like, are you serious?
You got to do it. You got to do it. Why wake me up?
Yeah. And so what was really weird is like and this is VA, and, sometimes those stories that people hear about the VA are true, and sometimes they're not true. And this one was just, I think what had happened is that someone was supposed to take me back down to my room, and somebody else was like supposed to pick me up halfway in between. So I wake up and there's nobody around me, and I'm like at the elevators, and I'm kind of like looking around, and then everything's kind of coming back to me, like what just happened. And then so I looked underneath the sheet and seeing that, like they did the amputation, and I just started freaking out.
Can I take you back to that moment? Is this the moment I've read your story, and you're in a gurney and you're all alone, and it was almost like a turning point in your life. You almost have like a metaphysical experience, like figure out what I need to do next. It's time to like figure out what life holds for me next.
Yeah, because I just lost my wife, and I just went through a second amputation, and I was just kind of like, I really wasn't religious. I was a little more angry at him. And I just was just like, God, if, tell me what you want, because I don't know, if I can really take much more of this, because this was big, because everyone had told me like, oh, it's a good thing that you're a below the knee amputee. You wouldn't want to become, you wouldn't want to be an above the knee. And like, I heard that for about 2 weeks, and then I going through this, and it was just like, oh my God, like this is horrible. Just of course the mind always goes to the most negative thing. And, I'm thinking that I'm never going to be able to do anything ever again.
When did you finally get up and start moving again?
It was probably 3 months after the second surgery. I was still down in Denver, doing physical therapy and just getting used to walking with my prosthetic. Because for the first 30 days I was in, they call it the CLC, which is kind of like a hospice, which, it was very eye-opening at times, because a lot of those people in there were
way worse.
And so after 30 days, I got out, and then they put me in a hotel on Colfax. If you've ever been in Denver, Colfax isn't the best of areas. And I'm in a wheelchair with no leg, and, in this hotel room on Colfax. And it was pretty intimidating. I didn't do much. I was also on a lot of pharmaceutical drugs, oxycodone and morphine. And it was just, I didn't do a lot of anything. But I was working out. That was one thing that I would always do, is I would work out. I'd come up with workouts. I would use the wheelchair as a way to work out, and as a piece of equipment. And so as I'm doing all this stuff, Brandy and I used to live in Fort Collins, and she did her cancer treatments at the University of Nebraska in Omaha, the medical center.
Mhm.
And there were a lot of times that we drove, from Fort Collins to Omaha. And I had just asked, like, how many people have ever like rode a bike that far, let alone been like an amputee and rode a bike that far?
What was the cause behind this journey?
Well, actually, it's where, as I was sitting in that bed asking God, like, what he wanted me to do, this is where I kind of came up with the nonprofit that I have called Be Bold. And where I got Be Bold is that was Brandy's license plates that she had. And it just kind of described the person that she was. And so as we were doing the logistics, the paperwork, we're going in for the nonprofit, and we're planning this whole trip to go from Fort Collins to Omaha. And what I wanted to do is the money that we had raised, I wanted to give to another veteran who had dealt with what I was dealt with, as far as having your spouse or yourself or a family member going through cancer. I wanted to give them some type of respite where they could just go and like go to Disneyland, because that's what my mother-in-law did for us. It was a couple months before she had passed, and we were all kind of able to, to make those memories and take pictures and not worry about doctor's appointments or chemo or, medication or anything like that. It was just something that we all kind of needed at that time, and I wanted to kind of give back.
What would you describe Be Bold as now? Because you've developed this whole universe, this whole tribe, this organization, Be Bold. What would you describe your mission as, and what are you guys up to nowadays?
We are veteran-owned and operated, 501c3, helping people with disabilities through adaptive sports. And right now we have adaptive boxing classes every Saturday at our gym here in Fort Collins Trials Martial Arts, which has just been awesome. And we don't have a definition of disability either. I think that we've told people that, hey, you could be an introvert, and if you coming to our class helps you in other ways of your life, then you're more than welcome to join one of our classes. I mean, I think we're all disabled. I tell people that, I was more disabled when I had two legs. I think that after you kind of go through something like this, it's either you're either going to become stronger or you're just going to become mad and you're not going to do anything about it. You're just going to sit and just dwell and wish that you could be doing other things. Or you could just be trying to do those other things. And that's what we just try to do, is just through boxing come in. And as soon as they come in through the front door, they know. And it's when they put the gloves on. As soon as they put the gloves on, I mean, there's a smile. They don't realize. You start to tell them, it's like, yeah, it's only 6 punches. They're numbered 1 through 6. They start to realize, like, after 2 minutes that they've got this kind of down a little bit, and they love it. There's this huge smile comes on their face, and there's nothing better than that.
Rustin Hughes, you hold a lot of clinics. This includes No Barriers, veterans organizations, and a bunch of other realms. What is it like to consistently work with the adaptive athlete?
Again, like I was kind of saying before, I think we're all kind of disabled. We all have aches and pains. We all have something we all kind of have to adapt to. Sometimes you see that more in the able-bodied people than you do with people with different abilities. I think that a lot of the times the person already knows how to adapt the exercise to themselves because they've had to adapt pretty much everything their whole lives.
Yeah, that's me.
And I think that sometimes there's too much thought that gets put into it, as far as like, what are we going to do? We got people in wheelchairs, what are we going to do? We got a guy with, prosthetic legs. What are we going to do? And it's just like, just do it like you normally would, and then we'll figure it out along the way. And I think that's the best way to do things. You're kind of MacGyvering it.
What kind of coach are you like? Are you tough on them?
No. But I think that I'm very I try to get them pumped up. Because I think a lot of it too is like you're here. Has to be an incentive of yourself. You're going to have that little voice inside of you trying to push yourself, because nobody else is going to push you. No one else cares, honestly. What I've learned, I mean, there's people that do care, but if you really look at this world, it's a cruel world. So you got to take ownership of all this stuff on your own. And if you want to get stuff done, you're going to have to look at yourself in the mirror like, all right, let's get some stuff done. Because you can't depend on somebody to your left or to your right to say, hey, let's go work out, or hey, let's go work out. And if they don't go work out, you're not going to go work out. It's like, no, you got to start doing workouts on your own. Like, we got to start figuring this stuff out on our own. We got to quit trying to expect that somebody else is going to come and like give us all the answers. It's like, we got to find our answers out ourselves, because A, no one's in our situation that we're in, and B, we're unique to ourselves. So we're gonna have to figure this out to ourselves. And I think that's what I try to instill into them, is like, you're gonna have to get this figured out. But I will help you however I can, but like, let's get this figured out. And I even try to get them to like put themselves in the most vulnerable positions that they can. Even, like, what happens if you get knocked out of your wheelchair? What happens if someone wants to take your wallet? There's a statistic that's out that says that people with disabilities are 3 times more likely to be attacked than able-bodied people. And when I heard that, I was just like, honestly, I think that's wrong, because what it is that's not a disability issue, that's a confidence issue. And if you start coming in and taking my boxing classes, we're going to have a fun time. But just know, God forbid that you would ever have to use this. This is a self-defense that you could use to protect yourself.
Rustin, so many people quit. Why? Not just boxing. I mean, in general, they quit as they're going through that adversity.
It's tough. It's tough. And I think sometimes, there's going to be good days and there's going to be bad days. And I think that that's with anything. And that's one thing that sometimes there's going to be probably more than one bad day. But then again, we got to be in charge of starting to get those good days coming, and it's like, however you need to do it. It's like going to the gym or doing something that you enjoy doing. I think that, and sometimes I tell people that, like, going to the gym doesn't have to be your thing, but allow it to springboard you into something else that is. Because if you came and you did one of my classes, I just know that, I run tough classes.
Yeah.
So if you came in and you've done one of my classes, these are 1.5-hour classes. You can go, and if you want to start doing adaptive rock climbing, go try it. Why couldn't you? You did one of my classes. It's not going to be any worse than what you just did here. So allow yourself to try. And like this last week, I actually got out of my comfort zone a little bit and went, it's called a Snow Go. It looks like a bike that's got 3 skis on it.
Those are freaking amazing looking.
Oh, it was so fun. My friend Dustin, he is an instructor for him, and we went up to Steamboat, and he showed me how to do them, and it was just an amazing time. But it's one thing, I think that something I learned with my late wife was that we don't have a lot of time on this planet. Life is short, and so there's going to be a time, and like, I'm 44, I'm going to be 45 this year, and I can't believe I'm that old. And it just seemed like yesterday I was 18. And I know I'm going to take a blink in my eye and I'm going to be 65, and I don't want to have like regrets, like, oh man, I wish I did that. Or
yeah.
where you just or like, man, why'd I quit that? Well, I wish I would have continued that on. So I want to continue doing stuff and just trying new things and just evolving with myself too. One thing I've learned as I get older that recovery takes a little bit longer. And,
Oh my God, I know.
It's one of those where you can't go out there and act like you're 25 anymore. You're almost 45. So, treat yourself as such. But, I think just continuously trying new things and, is what's been, awesome for me and I think for me, like losing the leg was a blessing in disguise, honestly. Like it was, it was one of those things where it was just like, I'm almost at like, I'm done. Like whatever life wants to throw at me, throw it at me. I'm done. Like, let's do it. Like, are you serious? Like I went through 2 amputations and like, oh my God, like it's, I don't know. I think it gave me some, I don't know. It allowed me to meet a lot of really cool people and do a lot of awesome experiences.
It is a real perspective when you go through something big like that. There's only so much time and you got to get the shit done that you want to do. And who cares what people think, Yeah,
it's, it really put things into perspective as far as like, what do I want to do? What do I want to be? This is the situation that I'm in.
Your household, you got a full household, man. You got kids at home. Are the kids scared to come over? Like boys scared to come over and talk to your daughters? Because I have daughters too, and I'm like, Rustin would be a scary guy to have to approach.
I think it's different. I'm a stepfather, and also being an amputee, I think there's a lot of it's different. And I also, like, if you've seen how I wear my pants, I cut my leg off, my pant leg off of my prosthetic side.
Yep.
So I always have my prosthetic leg showing. One, because I've got all these kind of knobs and control things I've got to get to my leg to kind of control. And it's hard if you're wearing full pants. And then 2, I think it's something that, it's kind of because my leg's pretty sweet. It's
I know, it's badass. I saw it. It really is.
It's one of the best that's out there. And it's kind of like a medal, or a badge of honor that, life tried to take me out and lost. And this is what I got.
I don't know if it's the same one you're sporting in a video, but it's like got this steampunk look to it. And you're like getting ready to get into, you guys were like warming up in a cage or something. I'm like, that is a badass looking leg right there.
Yeah, I think it was that same one. Yeah. Yeah.
You've dealt with setbacks. What do you say to yourself as you're going through a setback?
Well, actually right now I'm probably going through one of the biggest setbacks since the last amputation that I had. Mm-hmm. After that last Fight to Win pro that I did. So that was Friday night. I did the Fight to Win pro. Sunday, we had open mat at our gym, and I went and rolled a little bit. At the end of the open mat, I just kind of felt weird in my ribs a little bit. And I thought maybe just because I didn't really stretch out after my competition and I didn't warm up really before on open mat, that I'd tweak something and I got a floating rib out or, something like that. It was kind of poking into my lung. I was having a hard time breathing. Sunday, later on in the day, my breathing was very shallow and rapid. And I was in a lot of pain. But I, again, just thought that this was a floating rib that was just pushing into my lung. And I was just like, wow, this is a good one. So Monday, the next day, I make an appointment at my chiropractor and see if I could come in. And my wife takes me in, and I'm in a lot of pain at this point. And the chiropractor is like, no, like, this is not a floating rib. That's how you need to probably go to the emergency room. So we went to the emergency room, and they tell me I had multiple pulmonary embolisms in my lungs, we went through just a big ordeal with, I got discharged within 2 hours from them telling me that, which was not the usual kind of protocol that I was used to. They told me just to go see my primary care physician. So we come home, I go to sleep. So about 1 o'clock, I wake up, and at this point, I really can't breathe. Then it's almost to a point where it's anxiety. Like you can't catch your breath, and now you're like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna pass out. I'm freaking out. My wife calls the ambulance, and they pick me up, and then they take me to the hospital, and they admit me. I was in there from Tuesday to Friday.
Whoa.
And then again, everything has been kind of, I was thinking that the clots could dislodge and go elsewhere. And I had doctors and nurses tell me that could happen. And then I come to find out that can't happen. There's a lot of just misinformation that was been given to me. And at this point, it's just a lot of me trying to navigate through this and find the right stuff. Unfortunately, they have to put me on blood thinners. And since that's how I lost my leg, was the blood clots, and now clots in my lungs, they want to put me on blood thinners for indefinitely. So it's been, actually, I just got back from Denver. I had an appointment today.
How are you feeling? How's it looking?
I feel way better. Like I wasn't eating. I weighed in for that Fight to Win Pro. I was 142, and I was still wearing sweatpants. So I think I even had my fight shorts on. So I was about 140, I think. I got down to 130, and that was just horrible.
It's too fast, man, especially coming off a fight.
Yeah. So I think right now what has been kind of looking on the bright side of things, because I can't roll. I can't do anything. There's no contact. They have me on Xarelto, which is blood thinner I don't really like, because it's just, I don't know. I don't like being on blood thinners just to begin with. And
I should mention this. When you fought somebody who was completely able. There was no limbs missing. There was no issue going on. You went in there and you won by heel hook.
Yep. And that's the, to be on the Fight to Win Pro stage was just, it was awesome. That was like a huge goal for me. And then especially as an amputee going in against an able-bodied person. And that's kind of the mentality that we want to have now going forward, is that there was a whole para jiu-jitsu thing that was going on, and that was great. But I think that right now, it's so hard to find other para athletes to train with. So when you do go and compete against another para athlete, it's completely different. And we compete against able-bodied people all the time. And I think that's the ultimate goal, is just to show that regardless of whatever has gone on in our lives, being paralyzed or being an amputee or, whatever, that I can still compete with you. I can still hold my own with you. This is not a disability to me. This is an ability. This is a strength. This is an advantage. In my head, this is an advantage to me. A lot of people don't know how to grapple me because they've never grappled a one-legged guy before. And in their heads, they always want to pass to my weak side, to my amputated side. And usually that's when they get armbarred. And that's what I loved about it, is they always think they're going for something that's weaker, and they end up, in a dangerous situation.
It reminds me of Anthony Robles. I hope I'm saying his name right, but he really learned how to wrestle and utilize the advantage of having one leg on the mats. And he was a badass, man, won the national championship out of Arizona State. And you talking about this reminds me of him. Who motivated you, man? Who motivated you to get out there and fight?
I don't know. I think it's in my blood, for one.
Yeah.
I just love it. Two, my coach, Ryan Schultz, he's just helped me a lot through I've known him for a very long time. We grew up in North Platte, Nebraska together. He was a little bit younger than I was, but we wrestled freestyle wrestling. We travel around Nebraska and Colorado, and so we've known each other for a very long time. And then he's helped me a lot through a lot of this, and just the memory of my wife Brandy, and then just I'm married now too, so even my wife Britta, she's helped me a lot. She's stuck by through the very beginning. I think we'd just been dating a year when they had told us that I was going to lose my leg, and a lot of people might have just jumped ship. So it says a lot about her as well.
Yeah, maybe about you too. Maybe you're that catch. You know what I mean? Rustin Hughes is a catch, deserved to be around, right?
Yeah, maybe.
So we look back, man. I mean, you were at one point, you went through 10 years of dealing with cancer, with your late wife, and then eventually you're in that stretcher, and we look back and now you're here where you're at, and life is always going to be kicking our ass. But what have you learned about everything, about the world as you've gone through all this?
Well, appreciate the good times, because there are bad times. And, sometimes you have to go, sometimes you have to weather a storm to appreciate the sunshine. And, sometimes you don't think that there could ever be a light at the end of the tunnel, but there is. You just got to keep moving forward. It's hard to stay positive at times, but just surround yourself with good people. Like my coach, he always says that, no one makes it to the top on their own. And it's true. And, just surround yourself with good people. And I think that everything kind of works itself out the way it's supposed to happen.
Our listeners especially, are adapting to something, some of it physical, some of it mental, whatever it is. They're listening, and we often offer takeaways, as we call it, something to go back, check out, or look forward to. What's something that has really helped you in recent times that you can point others to?
I think that it's a lot of things. It's kind of a lot of things. I think just getting out and trying stuff. I think that there's a will, there's a way. We live in this age of Google, and you can Google anything. And if you want to do something, I'm sure that someone has tried it or they are trying it, and you can Google it. And, there's a saying I heard the other day is that we are drowning in information, but starving for knowledge. And it's just use Google for what it's for. And if you have a question, just put it in Google, and a lot of times you'll kind of find an answer. You'll find stuff, people doing stuff. That's when I came up with adaptive boxing. I put in adaptive boxing in Google, and finding different people around the world are doing adaptive boxing, which was awesome. And it's just seeing people have that same kind of mindset, seeing people life has tried to take us out, but it has not. It hasn't succeeded. And we are going to do everything in our power to do what we love to do. And if it's boxing, go do boxing. If it's, rock climbing, go rock climb. If it's, playing a musical instrument, go play that musical instrument. But do it. Again, life is too short. You're going to be at your deathbed wishing that you could have been doing a lot of stuff, or wondering maybe if you could have done it. Maybe could I have done that? I don't know. Maybe you should have tried it. And you're never too old too. That's one thing I tell a lot of people. I try to recruit people to do jujitsu, and they're like, "Oh, I'm 35," and I was like, "Oh, that's cute. I'm 44 and I have one leg." And it's just you're never too old to do anything. I don't think you're never too anything to try anything. You're never too small, or you're never too big. You're never too whatever. Just do it. Just try it.
Now, what would you want people to know about Rustin Hughes? Looking at who you are right now and what you've went through, what do you want people to know about you?
one of the biggest things is that losing my leg, like I've changed so much. I used to be very, and I still kind of am at times, like an introvert, very quiet, very reserved. Didn't really, talk a lot. For me, to look back 6 years ago where I was at, or, even 6 years ago looking forward, like it's a completely different person. And it's for the good. It's for the better. Like I can't, like, it was earlier or last summer, I went and spoke at the University of Nebraska, Kearney. There was about 300, I think, 350 middle schoolers that were there for a conference. And it was my first like big kind of public speaking. And I treated it almost just like a coaching, just coaching. And it wasn't like I had to memorize anything because it was my life that I was telling them about. And, just kind of thinking about it being in a coaching kind of way, I wasn't nervous at all. It was just like I was coaching a bunch of people. And I really enjoyed that. And what blew me away was there was one point that I was done speaking, and I kind of just finished, and all of these kids kind of bum rushed the stage and they wanted my autograph. And we weren't done with the program yet. So like all of these teachers and counselors are trying to tell their kids to go sit back down.
Yeah.
And it just blew me away. Like, I couldn't believe that, like my story impacted them that much. And then when we were done, they all come back up again. And I was just like, I don't know. It was really cool to think that, my story, affected them in a way. And there was one point we kind of had some technical difficulties. They couldn't get one of the videos up. It didn't have any audio going on. So they're kind of asking me to ad lib a little bit. And so I'm like going, all right. So I go, does anyone have any questions you want to ask an amputee? Like, I don't care. Ask me anything you want. So they go through and they're asking me some questions, and some of them are serious and some of them they're just kind of messing around. They ask me if I play like Fortnite or whatever. And
yeah.
So at the end, when I'm signing these autographs or whatever, the very last kid, he comes to ask me, he's like, I got a question for you. And I was just like, yeah, what's up, buddy? And he's like, through all this, did you ever want to commit suicide? And it really it took me back, because I was just like, wow, this is a serious question. Because this kid isn't asking for a friend. Like this kid really wanted to know, because, maybe he's had these thoughts in himself. Like, and for me, it was a no. I've never thought about committing suicide. It's against my constitution. But believe me, I had some bad days. And that's what I had told him. And I hope that helped him through his process and, his journey. But I also realized that, like, it's pretty influencing, like when I do talk to people, that people, they do listen to what I say. And they, it's something I never thought I would ever be in this position, me standing in front of a big group of people telling my story.
It obviously touches you, that kids were there and they were severely impacted in a good way. They were impacted by what you're saying and your story. You went through a ton. You went through a ton, Rustin, and you went through a bunch, and to see the impact of others that you have on others, and they get to see what you went through or hear what you went through, and know that you made it through thus far, Yeah.
And yeah, I think that it was huge. I think it was that weekend was just an amazing weekend for me. Just it was. It's kind of what I needed, kind of this. I went through all of this stuff, and there's kind of a benefit to it, or not a benefit, but it's for the good. Like all of this is for the good, and I need to tell my story to people, and maybe it can help them get through their stuff.
A ton of purpose. The human condition is intense, and having others that have had to adapt to things more significant than one may have to adapt to. So those middle school kids may have not had to adapt to something as big at this point in their lives, but to see and witness that and see one coming out the other side and thriving and building an organization does make dramatic impacts. That's what it's about.
Yeah. Yep.
Really is. That's what it's all about.
I tell people that I will probably not become financially rich, but I become rich in so many other ways, through friendships, through experiences. Just it's not always about like the material things, there's so many other things that are out there that are just amazing, good energy. It's not always about the finances, it's not always about money. And that's one thing that I've learned is that there's so many good things that are out there. You just gotta have to look for them.
You got a great perspective. I agree. Money's for whatever. It's something we need to get by at times, but yeah. You get that chance to sit across or stand across or wheel across or whatever another person and say, put on those gloves. Let's hit some shit. Let's feel better about where we're at. Let's blow off some steam, but let's do it together. And that's pretty impressive. And that's what I think Be Bold is about, in my opinion. And that's what I think you're about, man.
Right on. Yeah, I think it's, I never thought also that I'd be, like teaching boxing, because everyone, when I was in the Army, I got into some fist fights, and my first sergeant was just like, fighting's going to get you nowhere, fighting.
Shit.
Now I kind of look back and I was just like, oh, look at me now, first sergeant, like look at
call
me now.
him. No, I'm just kidding.
I should.
It does get you somewhere.
In a positive way, and it's something that I think we all, it's very instinctual to be mad, and to want to fight. I mean, everything in nature fights, and it's in us, but we need to learn to be civilized about it. And, you could have a bad day where everything goes wrong, like coffee, you don't have no coffee, you don't have, your tires flat, you need gas, everything could be going wrong. And you go into the gym and you can just go and just shut your brain off and unleash, get it all out of you, and then you're done. And then you turn your brain back on and you walk out the door.
Your path, you started as a wrestler in Nebraska, which is like a pretty intense area for wrestling. I grew up in Western PA, very intense area for wrestling too. And you started as a tough kid, probably pretty grizzled, probably tougher environment, hence why you're the fighter you are. You've gone through the military. You've gone through a cancer battle, which unfortunately was pretty devastating. And you've gotten through amputation and setbacks and everything. And life is now where it's at. And it's a pretty impressive story, Rustin. It really is.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, man. It's a badass story. And what's the best way for listeners to kind of hang out with you, talk to you? Is it through Be-Bold, or is it through your social media?
Probably more social media. I have my own personal page, Rustin Hughes, or I have the Rustin Hughes Adaptive Athlete.
Cool. We're going to have this all linked in the show notes. We'll have it linked on our website. We'll have it linked in social media. We'll have it linked off the link tree. So we'll have it everywhere. And Rustin, we appreciate you being on. And you're also in the Be More Adaptive group. So if you're on there, folks, you can reach Rustin right there too. So
yes, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks again, Rustin.
Hey, thank you so much.
All right, that's the episode. Remember, you can find contact information for guests in the show notes or on our website, livingadaptive.com. On livingadaptive.com, you can also find previous episodes, writings, and a bunch of other good stuff. So go there. Peace.